Hi, everybody. I know I'm hopping on really unannounced tonight. Hope everybody is doing good. I'm going to give you a few minutes to get on. All right. The name of our live stream tonight is Elvis Lives as his twin, Jesse. All right. I decided that I'm going to wait on the Civil Nora one until I get more information available. And I do a little more research, and I got a couple other things I'm in the works. So today we're going to focus on Elvis being the twinless twin. All right. So when Elvis was born, he was a twin. All right. Anyway, I already said that, but that's okay. So I'm going to start out with a quick introduction. Hi, everybody, whoever's joining on. How you doing tonight? Okay. So, as we dive in, I'm going to talk about couple things. So, Elvis, when he was born 35 minutes after his brother Jesse. His brother Jesse was born dead, a stillborn twin, and Elvis always kind of questioned, why was I the one that was left here and he died at birth? So, and there was a couple of things that he had revealed, obviously, to Larry Giller. So I'm going to read some of that right now in his book, If I Can Dream. I don't know if you can see this. Sometimes this camera is very blurry. If I Can Dream. But I will put the title of it on this banner here. I believe I have it here. If I Can Dream by Larry Giller. Okay. But he talks about Elvis Aron, Aron, was later corrected to Aaron Presley, born on January 8th, 1935, to Gladys Love Smith Presley and Vernon Elvis Presley in East Tupelo, Mississippi. A half hour before Elvis's birth, a midwife and the doctor delivered a stillborn boy named Jesse, named after his Vernon's father, Jesse D. McCowell, or J.D. Presley. Okay. Garen Presley. Though the family never knew Jesse, he lived on in their hearts. They say that when one twin dies, Elvis remarked once, the other grows up with all the qualities of the other too. If I did, I'm lucky. When serious complications developed, Gladys and baby Elvis were moved from the family's little two-room shack to a hospital. They remained in a charity ward for 3 weeks, and Gladys's health, baby Jesse's death, and the weakened condition of his surviving brother became 3 more items in a litany of problems the Presleys faced. Gladys and Vernon were just two and a half years earlier eloped after a brief courtship, and he was they were both children of sharecroppers. This is interesting information about Vernon and Gladys, so I'm going to read this stuff. Vernon's father, J.D., was one of 10 illegitimate children. J.D. was handsome, mean, and a drinker. His wife, Minnie Mae, was the family's backbone, and she doted on her son Vernon, as Gladys would dote on Elvis. So she ended up becoming pregnant, and she got a lot of health problems. But because her mom was unable to take care of the kids, her father died when she was 19. She ended up taking care of 4 siblings plus her aging mother, and she was pregnant with Elvis, and she worked as well. But when Elvis was born, she dedicated herself to being a mother at home, and I think she might have had to work because Vernon went to prison for a few years, so she ended up working too. But Elvis was raised as an only child. He tells Wanda June Hill in her book, We Remember Elvis, by Wanda June Hill. He says, I was an only child, very protected and spoiled child, and I grew up with just a mother, a father, and a few cousins. So any of you guys who are in any kind of group or anything that or deals with other brothers, there's no such thing. All right. But this stuff will help you get an idea of where I'm going with this. He also said that he was programmed to obey. And he was because his mother was like that. He did everything his mother told him. He was protected, and he never did anything that his parents didn't tell him to do. So he would get up in the morning, and his mother would tell him what to wear, what to do, what to eat, what to do, and what to do it, and how to do it. And if I did it right, most of my young life, someone told me how to do and what to do, and I was programmed to obey. So he did have, a very he was very coddled by his mother, raised as an only child, and they regretted not having any other brothers and sisters. But I think because he says I was a twin, and he died when we were born, but sort of paved the way for me. He was born first. We talked about him a lot at home, about how it would have been if he were alive. I was an only child, and I was lonely often. Yes, would have liked to have welcomed brothers and sisters, but after my mother died, my father remarried a lady that had 3 sons, and they grew up in the house and around me. Even though I was older and everything, I enjoyed them and I loved them, and I still enjoy them around me. They help on the road and look after me, and they got specific jobs working for us. So he really did not um, learn kind of like independence. All right. So his mom did everything for him. And then when his mother died, it was kind of like, oh boy, you know, he was so depressed. He never really got over um, her death. Hi, Tina. How are you tonight? All right. He never really got over her death. And I really don't think he knew how to do anything. That's why he had so many people around him to do this, to do that, to do this, to do that, because he really didn't have the skills that he needed to be on his own. And he was always lonely. All right. So he stresses that here too. In this book, he stresses to Larry a lot about his journey as being a twinless twin. And he believed that he was connected to his twin spiritually as well. Now, there were reports of him talking to his twin at night. Having bad nightmares as well, but talking to his twin at night and everything. So, in the book about the truth about Elvis Aaron Presley, in his own words, he said he staged his death so his brother could live, and he was going to live as his brother. And that was one thing that twinless twins do. Their souls are interconnected. So he said basically, I know it's corny as it sounds, he says, but I did it so my brother could live. I lived 42 years, now it's his turn to live. He was giving his brother a chance to live. There was more reasons than that, but that's what he did. So that's how we use the numerology, because he said, you know, he was born on the 8th of January. And if you take 8 and you have an extra brother, that extra person born that day, then you would double the 8 and it would make it 16. So that's where he got the 8 and the 16. And then somehow 24 was a number that followed him. Like every time something added 24, if you add 24, something major would happen in his life. That's what Linda Hood Sigmund said in her site. Okay, so he basically said here in his book that being a twinless twin was very difficult for him because he always dealt, I told Larry this, he always dealt with the fact that he always questioned why he ended up living and his brother dying. Why couldn't his brother have died and I could have died and he could have lived? And there was other things that happened during his birth as well that was a little up here for me, but it was some type of miracle or God thing that happened. All right. So that's what they said there. Something to do with Orion and all that happy stuff. So in the Elvis files, Gail Brewer Giorgio, all right, said this about his twins. And I might have covered some of this when he did the numerology, but I figured I would stress it more and more because numerology was very important to Elvis and still is today. That's what he says in this book here. He still is very important to him today. And we will go in more into this book. I'm going to get permission. I wrote for permission to see if I could read the whole thing online here so I could get subtitles for people who have different languages so they could enjoy the book as much as we do in English and other books. So hopefully I can get permission to read the whole thing. If not, I'll have to quote out of it like I do now. Okay, so. But eventually we will get most of it. There's not a lot in this book. This book is only 88 pages long. It's not a very long book. It takes 2 hours to read it, but yeah. Okay. So she's gonna explain a little more in here about the spelling on the stone. She was talking about the Aron spelling on the stone. So if you look in Jesse Garen Presley's stone at Graceland, it looks like this. I don't know if you can see it or not because this camera is not good. Nope, I'm not going to be able to show it to you. Anyway, it is always on the thumbnail anyway, so you'll see it there. Okay. I can also put it in the community. For some reason, I can't figure out how to put a picture up on this screen. I can do it with Video Maker, like with a regular Video Maker, but I can't do it here on this live. I don't know why. I can do a PowerPoint. So maybe next time I'll do a PowerPoint. Okay. So Elvis's twin Elvis's twin soul was in alignment, and he added another letter to his name of his brother's name on the graves. So his sick, ailing, elderly father, who had been so cosmic conscious to have thought this out on his own, I cannot fathom it. So in other words, what she's saying is that, Vernon added the extra A, but did Vernon have enough brains to add the I to Jessie? Because on the stone in Graceland, the name Jesse is spelled with an I. The real name is Jesse. Okay. No, Elvis was the one taking care of business, and that business was related to the cosmic. And here is more about the grave. On August 12, 1978, news article in the Windsor Star stated Graceland was zoned R1. In R1 zones, burials are not among approved uses. So variance was permitted it continued. Within a week of Elvis's funeral, workmen disinterred the body of Elvis's mother and moved her to the hillside grave to the crypt to lie beside Elvis. Permit it move, and body was applied for retroactively. And it tells that a few days later, attorneys for the Presley estate applied for zoning variance to allow the bodies to be moved to both Elvis and his mother to be moved to the Graceland site. If the above is correct, makes one more question why the move was later blamed on 3 men attempting to break into the crypt. They were charged with attempted body napping, but Vernon dropped the charges, and the local officials stated if the truth ever came out, it would open a can of worms, and into the fact it would have shocked the entire world. Apparently, the move to Graceland was planned as early as August and not October. So intrigue has always been surrounded by the death of Jesse Garen, buried in the unmarked grave in Priceville Cemetery in Tupelo, Mississippi. Elvis often mentioned that Jesse's death was a mystery and felt a sense of profound loss, which leads to one to wonder why, after making his fortune, Elvis never had a memorial placed at the Priceville Cemetery. If it were for security reasons, body nappers, then the reasoning would carry over to his mother's grave and the original at Forest Hill Cemetery in Memphis, where an elaborate memorial was erected in her honor. Other avenues of thought suggest that no one is buried at Graceland. Elvis's grandmother, father, mother are in the mausoleum where it was reported sealed off room exists. Its doors several inches above ground so that one can peek beneath. Some who have peeked wrote to question why a single rose had been seen there on Mother's Day on August 14th, the day Gladys Presley died. But again, this does not necessarily mean that Elvis is alive, only that no one was buried at Graceland. Again, the security reasons, body nappers. So Elvis loved his mother very much and always said he would be buried beside her. Many fans have noted. So why is he buried between his father and his grandmother? They asked. There is no reason for it. After all, he and his mother were there first. Another clue. I've never really let my mother go, Elvis said. She is in my heart. She always will be. So basically, this was about his mother um, being moved to the mausoleum, and they didn't get variance to be buried in Graceland. So what she's saying is she's questioning whether the bodies were ever moved to Graceland in the first place, that they might be in the mausoleum altogether. And they put the memorial stones there to throw whoever it was that was trying to find Elvis or exhume his body off. All right. So that's what they're thinking. So I don't know. So the more about the twins. All right. So he said to Gail Brewer Giorgio in Is Elvis Alive? He called her. And of course, he called her as Orion, which was weird, right? She went to the Orion concert, asked Orion, and he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. All right. So this is a portion of the chapter that dealt with him faking his death through breath control and meditation and extraordinary physical endurance. Basically, it like controlled the breathing to the point where it makes you mimic being dead, pretending to be dead, or faking unconsciousness. And that's where I was going to pick up, but for some reason, I don't know why I'm over here. Okay, anyway. So, we're going to do this. So many biographers talk about the fact that Elvis Presley possessed an uncanny sense of timing, almost perfection. Elvis chalked this up to having studied numerology. Certain events would be successful if enacted at a particular time. That's why August 16th, 1977 was the perfect day. But he also knew that in order for one thing to happen, you must do something else first. So on August 16th, 1977 was not the end of Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley is the cause of Elvis Presley, the persona, the mystique, the uniqueness. Elvis became the Elvis he wanted to become. It would be in total character if that Elvis was no longer appealing to pull a reverse to un-Elvis himself. Now, she's pretty close in this, and that book, The Truth About Elvis Aaron Presley, did not come out till 2001 or 2. So what she's saying is basically he's un-Elvising himself. He's getting rid of the Elvis image. Basically what he's doing. He's killing the image. So living as two people in one began when he was born, a twin. A twin he believed to be identical, a part of him that died before having a chance at life. Major studies have been done on twins and their amazing bonding. Even twins separated at birth without knowledge of such a kinship go through life in search of and with the feeling of having a part of them missing. That's a credible feeling, particularly in the case of identical twins who are created from one egg, which divides into two halves. This recalls a conversion in which Orion, the singer, whichever Orion it was, spoke about having an identical twin issue. He said to her over the phone, "Identical twins come from one egg," Orion said. "At the moment of conception, there is just one soul, but when the egg divides, it becomes two people. Now, I believe the soul divides also, each half going into a different body. If one of those identical bodies dies at birth, I believe the soul of the dying twin goes back into the living twin's body, which means that the living twin will have twice the talent, twice the fame, yet twice the sorrow and twice the pain." And that's pretty close because he did have a lot of talent and a lot of fame, but then he had a lot of sorrow and a lot of pain. All right. So he's kind of talking to her, and we know by just this part of the discussion, he's not talking as Jimmy Ellis. Jimmy Ellis is not a twinless twin, right? So this conversation plays over and over in my mind, particularly because it occurred long before most of the biographical books on Elvis were released. Books which not only emphasize the deep sense of loss Elvis felt about missing twin, but also how Elvis felt completely comfortable leading a double life. Many of Elvis biographers have discussed his twin feeling. Of being both powerful and powerless. On the one hand, he had, as Elaine Dundee, who wrote Elvis and Gladys, dominated over death. He was the one to survive while at the same time had been powerless to save his brother. He probably harbored guilt. He had lived. Jesse Garen had not. And he had said this on Elvis Found Alive documentary. He said that I felt it was my fault that Jesse didn't survive. And he felt bad. And actually, Gladys was so worried about Elvis dying too that she catered and coddled him a lot, babied him a lot. Elvis, like most of us growing up in the 40s and 50s, found his imagination fired by comic book and radio heroes of the day. So many of these comic book heroes possess double identities, like Clark Kent by day and Superman by night. When I think of the singer Orion in his mask, I am reminded that many of the comic book heroes Elvis admired also wore masks. Coincidence? Hmm. If there were two Orions, each with a mask, then the deception spills over into my life. I do know that at least one Orion is a man named Jimmy Ellis, but the other? The truth is extensively researched and underscored in Elvis and Gladys, where it tells of Elvis' twin fusion with Captain Marvel Jr. Marvel was a hero on the one hand, and on the other had lived a normal life as a meek Freddie Freeman. Elvis was so captivated by this comic book hero that it was Captain Marvel Jr. who sculpted Elvis' authoritative stance, exultantly wide apart, the graceful gestures of his hands, palms flat, fingers stretched, thumbs extended. It was Captain Marvel Jr. who styled Elvis' glistening hair, side parted with a forelock falling over his brow, the sideburns, the hair growing down his neck. Much later would come Captain Marvel Jr. cape and lightning bolt emblem on TCB, taking care of business, and TLC, tender loving care, jewelry. Now, this might be a little far fetched, but we know Elvis really loved Captain Marvel Jr. And, they said that he kind of um emulated or maybe even like copied a superhero with some of his costumes with the capes and stuff like that, and some of his movements kind of reflected flying or triumphant movements, but he did a lot of karate movements too, so we don't know if that's true or not. But he really liked Captain Marvel. And Captain Marvel Jr. had black hair. Elvis had originally like a dirty blonde color hair, or what they call like light brown. So to dye his hair black, you can see where that's coming, where he does resemble a little bit of this cartoon character. But I'm not sure about the lightning bolt and all that. I heard Priscilla had something to do with making that particular emblem up. They were on a plane at the time, and there was a lightning storm, and she saw the lightning, and then she remembered his TCB, taking care of business, and she kind of designed it. So she's the one that designed that logo. And she said it in her book, and a couple other people had said the same thing. So we're not quite sure if that actually came from the Captain Marvel Jr. Comic book, especially if she did the lightning bolt when she was on the plane, when she was trying to design this logo for him, right? For TCB. Anyway, the lightning bolt displayed on the tail of Elvis's airplane, the Lisa Marie, is almost identical to the lightning bolt used in Captain Marvel Jr. series. Now, maybe not sure on that. The costume, cape, and the stance depicted Elvis Presley in the comic book form. I can see that. Rick Stanley says it was the little boy in him coming out that made him want to be a crusader against evil like Captain Marvel. And the double identity as Freddie Freeman, Captain Marvel Jr. could lead a normal day-to-day existence. As Captain Marvel Jr., he could fight crime and help make the world safer. To prove my point, I suggest reading many biographies written since Elvis's death All too all too often stories are repeated. And Elvis did live a double life. He lived a life as a rock star, and then he lived a life as an FBI agent and cop. So he did live a double life. So she's not wrong on that idea either. Okay. So Elvis was fascinated with the police, and on one occasion he attended a funeral dressed as a police captain uniform. Yet another occasion he wore police captain's uniform in Memphis recording session, and he collected badges, emblems, guns, and authoritative identification. Now, I'm going to skip a little bit. I'm not going to skip that much. And I'm just going to read a little excerpt out of The Truth About Elvis Aaron Presley in his own words. Because what he had done was he said, let me see if I can find it now. He participated in a couple of busts. Okay. So this is the quote I'm going to say from his book. Except for a couple of busts that I participated in, one in Miami and one in Denver, I did not do much police work because of overexposure, thus extensive plastic surgery. Please excuse my handwriting. I don't write much. Someone recognized me in Miami, and my people determined it would not be safe, so all the police work I imagined I would partake in was brought to a halt, even after the plastic surgery, which I was not entirely happy with. And he lived in many different cities and kept being moved around because he kept getting recognized. Now, the reason why I did that is because I wanted to show you that after his death, he participated in police work still. But he had to stop because he got recognized. Right? And every time he got recognized, they had to move him. And he had to get more surgery or whatever to change his look. Or he'd have to wear disguises and things like that. So to make it easier to actually do Orion to wear a mask makes sense because almost the whole entire part of your face right here is covered. All he needed was brown contacts. Their faces were shaped similar down here. He could wear something over his teeth to match Jimmy Ellis's teeth. And there you go. He could still tour and pretend to be Orion, and no one would really know. It's kind of like a smoke screen. It's kind of a deception way or an illusion. Actually, someone had mentioned to me that, like, Jimmy Ellis was what they call a front person, or I can't remember what he called it, a deterrent, or somebody that was the front. Okay, so how to explain what Jimmy Ellis's role was as Orion? Jimmy Ellis could sing on his own right. He had songs that he sang for Orion. He recorded with Elvis. I'm not sure if they recorded at the same time. Like Elvis might have recorded all the songs for Orion all at once. And then what they did was they separated them in all the albums. So he could have recorded like from 1979 to 1980 or 81, or even just a whole year, 1979, recorded all the songs they wanted to record, and then they put Jimmy Ellis and recorded his songs, and then separated the songs according to type, style, whatever they were doing. Okay, so like Orion's country album. So all those songs are country, right? And Rockabilly album is all old rock songs, rockabilly songs. Or they could be modern day songs and they just put them on there. But if you listen to the songs, you can tell they're kind of split between them. So it's a possibility. That's probably why she's saying that he disappeared sometimes and came back, because he was probably doing police work or FBI work in between. Elvis I'm talking about. And Jimmy Ellis was the front man. He was on all the album covers. He was all the pictures, all the interviews, all the TV programs. He was probably on the major concert circuits. And once in a while, Elvis would go on concert with him. Sometimes they would not. It just depended. And I think if the songs wasn't really recorded by Jimmy, he would learn the song to play, and you could tell right away they were different singers. Like Washing Machine was an example I gave last time I was on. But anyway, we're changing the subject now, going back to law enforcement. So let me finish this last part of this chapter, and then we're going to be done. And we can maybe chat a little bit. Maybe, maybe not. Depends. Anyway, so he became friends with law enforcement divisions and said to be obsessed with the type of authority a badge and uniform gave. And he was known to go out on drug busts with police in squad cars and unmarked cars. One time he disguised himself in a padded jumpsuit while wearing a ski mask. And the grand coup of it all, going to the White House, into the Oval Office, and having President Richard Nixon appoint Elvis Presley as a special agent in the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. That's December 21st, 1970. And he did do work for the FBI, which I have a video on that. So if you guys want to watch that later, you can. So Elvis apparently relished being able to have a second and secret life, a life unknown to those even closest to him. Maria Columbus, co-president of the Elvis Special and a special consultant on this project, put out the following news bulletin. While conducting research for our book, Elvis in Print, we have written hundreds of letters since 1981. These letters to fans, photographers, professional writers, and businesses. So it hasn't been unusual for us to uncover a little known photograph or fact during this time. But the most unusual and very startling information has come from Washington, D.C. itself. We are quoting directly from the correspondence received from the Department of Treasury and Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. So, during the period of 1974 to 1976, Mr. Presley provided one of our undercover narcotics agents who was a musician to cover a job cover. Mr. Presley confirmed to anyone inquiring that the agent musician was a member of his traveling bands, and although Mr. Presley was not actively involved in any investigations, his assistance in this regard made it possible for our agent to develop a number of quality investigations. So there was a lot there that he did. So I think living a double life as his brother is what he decided to do. So yes, he did use John Burroughs as an alias. He used Orion as an alias, but he also used Jesse Garen Presley. So when he wrote this book with Dr. Hinton, it doesn't come out good on this camera. I gotta really get a better camera. It says, with Jesse, down at the bottom. Excuse me, in authorship. All right. And it's hard to find. Oh, and this is my pages that fell out. Someone actually photocopied them for me, which was really nice of them to do. All right. So he took on his brother's identity. And a lot of people don't understand that on the group, but that's what happened. Okay. So there were no other brothers, and no, Jesse did not live past birth. That is not what I said. So don't anybody say that. All right. He took on his identity when he died, or when he killed the image, and became Jesse. And I think Jesse his name that he goes by right now, I call him Jesse Elvis because it's easier, because his real name is Elvis, but he can't be used that name anymore. All right. Tina says this is a learning experience, especially when those that of us that don't have a twin. It's amazing and interesting. Thank you. It is very interesting. Elvis was a very interesting man. He had multiple facets and very interesting um, things about him. He was very, very interesting man. He liked a lot of different things, and he dabbled in all kinds of religions and secret life as a police officer and a federal drug agent, plus a talented human being, very giving human being, and did a lot for his community and a lot for people with less than him because he knew what it was like to be poor and then give all his money away. I mean, he was humble, and I heard that he was a very humble person and loved to share, and it was very, very grateful and thankful as well. Yeah, but yeah, very interesting stuff. When I started researching it out, I couldn't believe how multifaceted and amazing Elvis was as a man, not just as a rock star. We don't see that other side of him. That's why I find this truth about Elvis Aaron Presley in his own words very interesting, because it shows his gratefulness and everything. So if I do read this book and get permission to read this whole book online, there are pictures in it. So I will do this without the streaming program, and I will do it with my real camera, or I will do it on a video form and just do it on video, because it's kind of hard. It doesn't work. Or I can put it on my phone. So I don't know. If I get permission, I'll do it. If not, I'll just break it up like I've been doing. All right. So, Tina, I hope you have a great night. And everybody else who's watching, I hope you have a great night. God bless you all. If you find this information interesting, I know this video is a little bit boring, but you know what? You gotta have some boring ones once in a while. But if you find this information interesting and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel and like it, and favorite this video and send it across YouTube logarithm and get notifications and share it wherever you want. All right. And you guys have a great night. God bless y'all. Bye.